A very good morning, one and all. Welcome to the special lecture on Amrit Kaal Vimarsh Vikasit Bharat at 2047, organized by Prime Minister's Office, Ministry of Education, Government of India and AICTE, a Government of India's initiative to discuss the transformational changes that has laid down the foundation for Vikasit Bharat by 2047, embarking 100 years of independent India. From the first spacecraft to land in the moon's South Polar to the recent G20 summit for the Global South, we have come a long way to put India in the global map. It is indeed an honor for Nitte University to be chosen for the lecture series, and it is our deep pleasure to have an eminent educationist, visionary, and a pioneer in the field of science and technology, Professor Deepak B. Pathak, former Chairman, Board of Governors, IIT Indore, and Professor Emeritus, IIT Bombay, Padma Shri Professor Dr. B. Pathak is with us today. A warm welcome to you, sir. Any event with the blessings of Almighty has always been a successful one, with the Almighty leading us through light, both seen and unseen. May I now kindly request everyone to raise for prayer. I request with me to lead us in prayer.
Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Avignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakarishu Sarvada Parabrahma Parannama Parisham Parameshwaram Vighnagnakaram Shantam Tvam Namami Gajananam.
A towering personality with qualities of head and heart, and playing an active role of empowering individuals with high-quality education, we have this Professor Dr. Gopal Mugiraya, Vice President, Technical Education, Nitte team, to welcome our guests and as well as introduce our guests to the audience. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar, respected Chief Guest of today's function, my Guru, Padma Shri Dr. D.P. Pathak ji, President of today's function, Honorable Vice Chancellor of our University, Dr. Muditaya, Registrar of our University, Dr. Harsha, Heads of the Institution of the Affiliated Institutes of our University, Functional Directors, friends from NMIT, my friends from neighboring institutions, Nitte Suratgal, faculty, staff, students, friends from press and electronic media, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Greetings to each one of you on a special occasion, on a special talk arranged by a special person on the topic Amrit Kaal Vimarsh Vikasit Bharat 2047, an initiative of Prime Minister's Office, MOE, AICTE, and being organized over our esteemed university. On behalf of our Honorable Chancellor and President of Nitte Trust, Dr. Amrit Kaal, I heartily welcome each one of you present here. Unfortunately, Dr. Hegde wanted to be here, but because of some health issues, he cannot be present here. He has conveyed his blessings and greetings to each one of you for having attended this function. Friends, the Amrit Kaal Vision Seminars are a step towards a developed India at 2047. Many of us will be there in 2047. Even I want to be here. I will be just 87 on the day, but I want to be there. These seminars are arranged in 12 locations initially in the country, and I am very happy to announce that Nitte University is chosen by the ministry as the only institute in our state to host this seminar. Sir, I belong to Nitte family, so it's my pleasure to say a few words about Nitte. Nitte is not an aberration. It's a village, name of a village. It's the name of a mission. It's the native place of our Chancellor. I remember during 1980s when I was a student, there is no engineering college or medical college other than Manipal and Suratkal. From Kasaragod to Karwar, 350 kilometers, we had only two engineering institutions. Then our Chancellor envisioned that we need to have an institution to empower our the rural youth. We started a mission in 1980, and in 86 we had the NMIT. To start with, we had a polytechnic, and today, after 3 decades, Nitte has become a mission. We have more than 36 institutions under university, about 13,500 students, about 1,300 faculty, and I'm very happy to announce that we are in the 65th rank in our rank of our country. That is achieved because of, not because of building. An institution cannot be built by bricks or contractor. It has to be built by the quality teachers, quality students, quality teaching learning process, and teacher-taught relation. That is existing. And our Chancellor always says that when we empower and support the excellence, naturally the excellence persists. If you subsidize a mediocrity persists. So we are all in the process. I'm very sure that down the line 10 years, we will be in the top 30 of our country. Friends, few words about this program. A significant transformation in our youth is essential to propel our nation toward the vision of goal of developed India by 2047, which is envisaged by our Prime Minister in the last year's August 15th speech. We need to embrace these core principles of Amrit Kaal, which includes shedding colonial mindsets, reconnecting with our cultural heritage, fostering unity, and nurturing a sense of duty among the citizens. We are on a transformation from the information-based technology education to a knowledge-based education. The synthesis of knowledge from the information, you have to convert our information to knowledge and knowledge to money. That is a prerequisite. As rightly said, there are three parts in the teaching learning process: knowledge assimilation, knowledge dissemination, and knowledge generation. That is exactly required to make India as a superpower. I'm very sure Dr. Pathak will throw light on this issue because of his wisdom. I appreciate the support extended by our Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Amrit Kaal. Welcome you, sir. And also, I appreciate the support extended by all my concerned directors, head of institutions, especially Dr. Nagesh Prabhu, who is the man behind the success of this function. Thank you very much. Before I formally welcome our chief guest, a few words about Dr. Pathak. Yeah, 2 minutes, sir. Because I know it takes about 20 minutes to define you, but I take about 2 minutes. Dr. Pathak, to summarize, an eminent computer scientist, distinguished academician, great teacher, above all, good human being. Dr. Pathak is the institution by himself. He obtained his MTech and PhD in computer engineering from IIT Mumbai, joined IIT Mumbai as a professor and served as a professor from 1971 till he retired in 2018. He was head of the computer engineering department of IIT Mumbai, dean of resources, head of Kanwal Rekhi School of IT, head of ACA Mehta School of Management. He is regarded as the pioneer of smart card usage in the financial transaction in India. He developed low-cost devices such as smart card readers, clinkers, thin clients. He successfully completed the Akash project for the affordable tablets. He is an open source evangelist and strives hard to popularize free and open source software content for the students. Dr. Pathak has mentored teachers through his Ekalavya project and 10 KT, that is, he has trained 10,000 Indian teachers in his domain of knowledge. Dr. Pathak started an IT incubator in IIT Bombay in 1990 to foster innovation and startup culture. It has now evolved into called SINE, S-I-N-E, Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, considered one of the best incubator of our country. He has set up the Affordable Solution Lab, ASL, at IIT Mumbai. Dr. Pathak is well known for the MOOCs and blended MOOCs and the project called the Deep Shala, which is doing now to enlighten or educate the rural youth in the digital education. Few words about his achievements. Dr. Pathak, recipient of Excellence in Teaching Award and Industrial Impact Research from IIT Mumbai. He was conferred the Lifelong Achievement by the Scotch Foundation in 2003, Data Quest in 2008, Devang Mehta Business School Award in 2010, Entrop in 2014, and CSI in 2018. He was listed among the top most powerful influential Indians by the Business Week in 2009. The President of India had honored Dr. Pathak with the Padma Shri in 2013 for his outstanding contribution in the science and technology of the Indian society, which he rightly deserves. Dr. Pathak believes that teaching cannot be a job or an assignment, but it's a profession with a passion. It should be one's dharma. His dream is to see an resurgent India catching up with the world using IT as a springboard. I was very close to him. That's why I know that he envisages the philosophy that Tat Puja Karma Chakilam, the greatest puja you can perform in this world is your duty with perfection. I had a proud privilege of working under him when I was the director of NIT Agartala and NIT Mizoram for 4 years, when Dr. Pathak was the BOG chairman. Together we built the beautiful campus of NIT Agartala, which is about 394 acres in 17.5 lakh square feet with 13,000 trees, and which is regarded the best campus of Northeast today. Thank you, sir. With these few words, I proudly present Dr. Pathak to the August gathering on behalf of Nitte family. I welcome you, sir. I once again welcome each one of the presents here to be the part of the deliberation and be our guest. Namaskar, Jai Hind and Vande Mataram.
Thank you, sir. Without any further ado, we will now begin with the much-awaited lecture series. May I now invite Professor Pathak to give his lecture on A Step Towards a Developed India at 2047. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, friends. It's indeed a privilege for me to be here with you. Thanks to the persistence of my friend Gopal, who would not hear a no from me. But the pleasure is entirely mine. Actually, I have been fortunate enough to have visited all the 3 campuses of Nitte University. I do not know why the stupid term dean to university is used by the government. I hope they correct the situation quickly. Because an academic organization which makes such rapid progress and is visible because of the quality that they established, nobody has a business to call them dean to university. That nonsense would stop today. I have visited Nitte more than 20 years ago. I had taken a sabbatical leave for 1 year, and I wanted to understand the problems faced by smaller engineering colleges. Because I was familiar with the IIT and NIT system. So I wanted to visit 100 colleges, but I could go to only 67 of them. And Nitte was one of them. And I was amazed at the dedication of teachers and the enthusiasm of students. I would interact with the final year students doing their projects and so on. Believe me, at every place, every one of the 67 colleges, I found some extraordinarily brilliant students who are applying their mind. They may not be very proficient in speaking English, but they are very good in the technical things that they do. Similarly, I also found several dedicated teachers who are going beyond the call of duty to do teaching, as I always say, like a dharma. That is when I started the Eklavya project and started large-scale teachers training program. So the 10,000 teachers training program was actually first major foray. It was not training 10,000 teachers, it was training 10,000 teachers at a time. So we trained more than 2 lakh teachers across the engineering colleges in the country over 3 years period. And it was a very satisfying thing to see technology being used to engage with so many people across 300 remote centers at any one time on different subjects. But Nitte stuck in my mind because of the nature of thought process which brought this institution into being and it progressed further. You see, my senior colleague and ex-director, Professor Sukhatme, have always maintained that good education must be done in a business-like fashion, as long as you don't make business out of it. The government systems are very stupid because they don't run educational institutions in a business-like fashion. They are loss-making institutions. Many private institutions I have seen which actually run education as a business for making money. Nitte is one of those few exceptions where the ambition is to give back. And I mean, it's, as somebody had said many years ago, that we have both Swarth and Parmarth. All of us have to look after ourselves and so on. So what is said is, Atmartham Jiva Lokesmin Kona Jivati Man Param Paropakaratham Yo Jivati Saji. And I think people who established this institution actually belong to it. And that is giving this opportunity for me to share with you. Amrit Kaal, a beautiful lady. I think our Prime Minister specializes in giving very attractive phrases and names for various events which otherwise should have occurred naturally. But 100 years of the country and 2047, Gopal, you said you will be in your 80s, right? I am 75 now, so I will be 99, I guess. And as per Indian tradition, I should have a life of 100 years plus minus few years. So I should still be around to see what happens. From my childhood, I was lucky enough to have been born in free India, 1948. So I have been breathing the air of independence and freedom right from birth. And I hope to God that I will continue to do so till the end. The history, if you see, I mean, India became independent in 1947 and then we became a republic in 1952. But you see, the India as we know today was not the India as we are known. There was no nation. Western country, in our case it was Great Britain, who decided what should be the outer boundaries of the nation. India, Pakistan, Myanmar. And they were so cunning that even after looting the country for 100 years more, they ensured that this country should break down very quickly because they left all the individual states as individual entities. Had it not been for Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, I do not know whether we would have had the kind of integration. Please understand that if you look at the history of the world, the dominant nation states have always decided the future of other weaker states. National boundaries have been drawn by them. Many of you will recall, if you have read history, that the Malta Conference, there were, when Roosevelt, Stalin and Churchill met, they actually redrew the map of the Middle East. And they said, this is Syria, this is Jordan, this is Saudi Arabia. How long does the world take this nonsense? Fact of life is that if historically every society, every human society segment has been sometimes very cruel to some other society. That is history. But the ability for different social groups to coexist, live and let live, has been epitomized in this country as nowhere else. We are not the largest country. Now we are the largest, of course, but the China, which does not have the kind of diversity that we have. Take the number of languages that we have. Take the number of ethnicities that we have. Take the number of religions that we have. And take the very specialized features of Indian psyche, which means that we fight over each one of these issues. And yet, we live like a nation. We live as a single nation, as a republic. That, I think, is our strength. To realize that strength, to become a voice that should be heard, has been our ambition. In my opinion, we unfortunately lost more than 4 decades of our independence in following, what we call command economy approach, which did not work anywhere else. We corrected ourselves, and since then we have been making rapid progress. The progress in human life cannot be made unless there is an economic and financial progress in the society. And correspondingly, that progress cannot be made withstanding all the pressures of the world unless you are also strong. The strength, both militarily and economically, comes out of hard work of the population. And I think we are very fortunate that this country has actually come of age now. Notice the voices that you hear from India about the entire world. Take the recent happenings. In the Ukraine war, India took a different stance than the Western countries. Chinese also did a similar stance. And when our foreign minister was asked that we did not hear a strong voice from India when Russia invaded Ukraine. And Jaishankar's reply was that when Iraq was invaded, when Afghanistan was invaded, we did not hear any voice from West either. I think this is the first time India is saying enough is enough. We will not take it anymore. We may not be as strong as you are today, but we shall soon be. And we will be standing up and be counted. We will not listen to the hegemony of few nations. Now, that is our India even today. And I have no doubt in the next 25 years, as we complete the Amrit Kaal, we shall be a power to recover. The only desire is that when we reach that level, we should not behave as stupidly as the West has behaved. And we should actually ensure that our strong top position is utilized for the benefit of the entire mankind. Given our culture and given our history, we do have the best chance to do it among all nation states. There are 2 books that I would like you to read. Many of you might have read them. It shows the pattern of how the geopolitical winds are blowing and the winds of development are blowing. One is an old book by Huntington, Clash of Civilizations, where he indicates that most probably the next set of clashes will occur on the religious hotpoints or on the cultural hotpoints rather than anything else. The second book that I would like you to read is one written not very long ago by Hans Rosling called Factfulness. He wrote that book because he used to ask questions about the developing world, developed world and so on. And he found that a majority of the audience would give wrong answers to his questions because their understanding of the world was based on 20-25 years old data, whereas the United Nations development data indicated very clearly that the so-called poor nations are no more poor. He gives a very beautiful classification of people in 4 classes, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, based on the average per day income of an individual, per capita income, but on a purchasing power. And he shows that how the economic and financial fulcrum of the world is distinctly moving from the West to East. So he predicts, for example, that within next 40 years, 60% of the richest individuals in the world will come from India. It is not that the Western world is going to become poorer very quickly. It is not that they will lose all the money that they have. It is just that the rest of the world will start earning more wealth over the years, as we have been witnessing. So, like all of you, I am extremely, what should I say, excited by the prospect. I have been a diehard optimist all my life, but I can see that optimism coming true now. And it's a good occasion where we take stock of things and ensure that we do right things in the future. I would like to take this opportunity to describe the 21st century in which we live in technology terms. This century is called the digital century because majority of our activities and interactions use digital mechanisms left, right and center. I don't know, but youngsters would never have faced this. But some of you will remember that, at least in my old days, I remember if I had to make a train reservation, I had to stand for hours in a queue to get a ticket. And it would not be uncommon to reach the window and then be denied the ticket because there is no place there. Today, at my home, using internet, I can go to IRCTC site and book for reservation there. At one time, the airline tickets used to be in the form of coupons and you have to purchase them through agents and whatever. Today, there is no such thing. I even web checking, I carry my boarding passes and I can directly. Take banking for example. There is no choice but to go personally to a bank branch to withdraw money or to do any transaction. Today, nothing of that sort. I've been a State Bank customer for 20 years, ever since I shifted to IIT Bombay in '69 and then next student. And I don't have to go to the branch. In fact, recently some RBI circular which said that you have to do a new sort of memorandum understanding for the lockers that you have. My wife has been using lockers for 3 times and the branch manager called, सर साल में एक बार तो कम से कम आ जाया कीजिए, आप आते ही नहीं हैं, तो काम ही नहीं पड़ता है, there's no need to go to branch anymore. So this is what the century is. This is a digital century. There are 2 very important things that have happened in this century which did not happen earlier. Technology was always important. Technology has evolved very rapidly. But when the conventional technology development is coupled with digital technology, amazing things happen. Many of you would have witnessed that. But what is to be noticed is that humanity as a whole is attempting to solve life-size problems for the first time. To give you a glimpse of it, some of you might have seen the site maintained by United States Academy of Engineers. Academy of Engineering, they published in the early part of this century the 100 great achievements of the last century in engineering. But more importantly, they published 14 grand challenges for this century. And all the grand challenges, by the way, most of them have been adopted by different nations, including India. The work has started. But look at the nature of those challenges. Making clean drinking water available, providing cheap solar energy, enhancing individual teaching learning process. These are all life-size problems. Carbon sequestration, these are all life-size problems. And what the US Academy of Engineering says is that majority of these problems will require a large part of the century to solve. But they are hopeful that these can be solved. Notice one more thing about these challenges and very similar challenges which are being attempted by people. Most of these challenges require large teams of different disciplines to work together. There is nothing new in multidisciplinary interdisciplinary work that has been going on for donkey's years in this world. But the future problems that the world will face and India will face can be solved only by large teams of multidisciplinary people, have no doubt. And that means it is in that context that we should perhaps have a hard relook at our education, which has been sadly broken into distinct silos. And human silos have a fantastic feature. The silos grow stronger and the silos grow isolated. So it is in the nature of things that every silo thinks that we are, of course, the most important silo, and we must maintain good distance from all other silos. This, unfortunately, will not do it. There are examples galore where people have formed groups across these silos and disciplines and work together. My friend B. Ravi, who happens to have landed in this part of the world recently after becoming director of NIT Surat, but he started his innovation by setting up a combined biomedical and engineering group and setting up an organization called Nitte. So when he was trying to design and build artificial limbs and such things, he suddenly realized that only engineers alone will not be able to do that. So he got a battery of doctors to come together and a battery of engineers who work together. And you should see the fantastic designs that have come out of that effort. Doctors and engineers have individually done great job, but very rarely they have worked together. That luxury is not available to us anymore. In fact, all professions have to gel well with each other in order to solve what we call large problems that are going to be faced by us. The multidisciplinary activity can be seen in many facets today. Many large problems in this country also require that. You will notice that most of the devices that are made for human use, daily use, actually require a large team of multidisciplinary. So one device which comes to my mind is an oximeter. Everybody became familiar with oximeter because the stupid COVID that hit us, and everybody had to measure the oxygen saturation level to feel mentally comfortable, not that it really helped, but whatever. And I was studying the oximeter design. I went through the process of manufacturing of oximeter, designing of oximeter, and suddenly discovered that you do require even there multidisciplinary teams. You require a scientist who will understand how the light is absorbed and not absorbed. You require understanding of the electronics to build circuits, to sense the quantum of light that comes up. You require embedded systems to design pulses to operate at two different very specific frequencies. And then finally you require the medical expertise to interpret that data and ensure that only correct values are figured. And then you require management experts, financial experts to ensure that the entire product design cycle and product manufacturing cycle and product selling cycle works in an optimal fashion. So you see, for any such thing that you take, you do require a chain of people. Unfortunately, our education traditionally has been, as I said, has been compartmentalized so much. Take engineering education, which I am familiar with. At one time, it was only engineering. In fact, when I was studying engineering, we were told, reminded time and again, that it does not matter whether you become an electrical engineer, civil engineer, mechanical engineer. Never forget that mechanical engineering is the mother of all engineering. At At that time, we used to have a 5-year degree program, out of which first 2 years had to be compulsorily spent in understanding the basics of engineering field. We then converted that into a 4-year program, and then we sort of de-emphasize this learning across disciplines. I'll give you an example of a very sad occurrence in my own institute, where traditionally we have got the top academic performers in the country joining us. And that was, I think, early 80s, and the PCs had just come into being. So, some of you might have seen old PCs which used to be horizontal boxes. And then the first vertical PC came. One was brought into my lab, and it was opened up, and some schools were working, and I went there. And I found the horrible thing. What the brilliant designer had done is, instead of those 4 supports, the bottom of the horizontal box, he had put them on the other side and simply moved the thing to a vertical position. So I asked my students, do you think this is a good design? They said, it's working all right. So I said, where is the center of gravity? This is the heaviest part of a PC, is the switch mode power supply. And that stupid design was such that the power supply was sitting on top, while it should have been sitting at the bottom. Now that the students understood. So center of gravity, they said the power supply is the wrong. And I said, what about heat transfer? So the students asked me, computer science students, sir, what about heat transfer? They said, the PCBs will get hot. Where is the position of the fan with respect to the plan that you have here? And how do you think the hot air will flow out? And one fellow brilliantly said, sir, that is a mechanical engineering problem. We are computer science students. What nonsense. So I told them it does not matter whether you are not even engineering students. It is common sense, and you must understand. This lack of appreciation of what is happening in the neighboring discipline bothered me then, bothers me even today. Fortunately, the IIT system has corrected itself by ensuring that there is an exposure to our students, even the BTech students. We started life sciences. Life sciences are considered orthogonal to everything else that engineers, which is very silly. Some of the best engineering that occurs in nature, engineers miss out completely because that is considered part of life sciences. Take, for example, the beautiful firefly, the jugnu as we call it. Now, if an engineer was to produce that much light in a conventional sense, the associated heat produced will burn that jugnu, and yet jugnus live. How? You take nitrogen supply to trees. If you were to do that kind of thing in a chemical plant, you will take actually so much energy. Plants do it automatically by absorbing it. You take the coconut tree, very tall tree, and when you take coconuts from the top, it has very beautiful sweet water. How does that water reach that top height? You don't find coconut trees with 4 pumps associated with them and everything. And yet a simple capillary action. Now these beautiful things, you take human body, the best example of architecture. How we can all stand, how we can all walk, how we have the degrees of freedom. The nature has designed all of this. In my own field of information systems, the message passing mechanism from any point to the brain and back is so amazingly constructed. If by mistake I touch a flame, and the messages flow through sort of synaptic junctions which are chemical, electrochemical behavior. And they not only reach brain, but the brain creates additional control signals sent to the motor muscles. And withdraw your hand very quickly. How does that happen? try to build an engineering system of that nature with that kind of complexity. It's not very easy. So much learning to happen. And this learning did not happen in our convention. I would urge the Nitte group, where you have actually all the necessary dimensions of different silos under one roof. You have great engineering institutions, you have great medical institutions, you have pharmacy, you have management, everything. Unfortunately, you all tacitly follow the same educational structure which has been imposed on the entire world over the last 100 years, and that is silo-based. The Honorable Vice Chancellor was just showing me the next plan, the next 4 or 5 years, because you got some land nearby. I request you to consider that whatever academics happens there does not happen in silos, but it happens such that people of different disciplines, people of different capabilities, people of different knowledge come together and help to solve large problems. In the process, the education that they will receive will still be top class, I assure. There is another facet of education which fascinated me for some time, and that is online education. There are tremendous advantages because the content of any subject, of any topic that are available today on the net are actually fierce, amazing amount. And it is not just the plain mundane content, but even explanations, great videos of people. You search for any topic and say videos, you will find at least 5 to 10 extraordinarily beautiful videos explaining that concept. Now, I started wondering a long time ago that as a teacher, my main job was always to engage with students in giving lectures. In fact, I once broke down how I spend time in a semester while teaching a particular subject. And I figured out that the largest amount of time was spent on lecturing. Some lot of time was spent on setting exam papers and correcting exam papers. Setting exam papers is, by the way, although I digress, but very, very important to understand that setting good exam papers take a lot of time. And you have to spend that time. Autonomous institutions have the fortunate privilege of individual teachers being able to spend time because they decide their own syllabus, they decide their own exam system. But the conventional educational system in this country is so bad. I was a product of such a university system as my undergraduate student. I studied in a good college in Indore, engineering college. But the university exam system was so stereotyped. We had questions, we first line said, solve any 6 out of 10 questions. Now, first year I studied like all other students, good students, 100% of the syllabus. Then I discovered I can study only 60% of the syllabus and still get 80% marks. So I started doing that from the second year. Each question was explain something or describe something, etc. Part A, part B, and part C used to be small problem. So you could get away without solving any problem, but just by mugging the textbook and reproducing that as the answer to me. And this carried on. As an added attraction in my third year, I found that questions are repeated from the previous examinations. So you have to study still less, as long as you could correctly guess by studying alternate year question papers. I remember I was taught only in one question paper. I still remember building materials. And somebody said the paper who did not know this golden rule of repeating questions. And he said all new questions, and I was completely baffled. I still don't know how I passed that course, but I did. Things changed completely when I came to IIT Bombay. My first exam was the teacher announced that tomorrow will be the test. The test is open book, open time test. I had no clue on what an open book test is, so I went and asked which book can I carry. Oh, he said any number of books. Then I said, sir, you said open time test is at 2 o'clock. He said, ordinarily the test would take 2 hours, but you can sit as long as you want. I was so happy. I had studied a little bit, but I carried 4 books that day. And then the question paper came. Nothing like solving so many of these questions, etc. The question paper was simply problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, problem 4, paper ends. There's no explain something, write short notes, nothing of that sort. Then I looked at the problems and I realized that none of those problems resembled anything that I had seen in any one of those 4 books. I started looking at this book, that book, etc., etc. I left that exam at 6 o'clock in the evening, and I was not the last person out. There was still one more joker sitting there. And Isaac was still supervised. He had a very interesting style of invigilation. The class was, of course, small, only 15 people of what we then called instrumentation control computers group. So he would keep looking at what you are writing. And if you make a mistake, he would give you a big slap on your back. Very strong hand. I got 2 that day. And his typical response, not that idiot, read that book again, try it again. I tell you, I was completely frustrated at the end of that 4 hours of so-called test, my first test in IIT. And I went back because I could solve only 2 of the problems reasonably well out of 4. And I used to be a top performer in my university. But when I reflected upon it, I realized that in those 4 hours I had learned more than what I would have ordinarily learned in a semester. Now that was possible because as a teacher he had complete freedom to set his question. And he took that freedom with great sense of responsibility. You may be aware that there was joint entrance exam and gate exam. Questions are never repeated. In fact, I had chaired a few of those committees, and out of 7 days, the group spent 2 days in going through all the question papers of old years to ensure not a single question is repeated. What is less known is a similar principle is followed by most of the faculty members when they set papers for the subjective day. No question is repeated from your own old papers. Now that takes time, that takes effort. And unfortunately, many of the autonomous institutions in this country who have received the autonomy after having worked as a part of the university somewhere. So what has happened is that thought processes have been set by those universities. I find a difference even between IITs and NITs. NITs, which are regional engineering colleges, they are affiliated to universities. University is not bad, but university had a set system, as I said, and that system was followed intrinsically. Whereas IIT system has evolved completely differently and independent. And we are now trying to see, because now there is nothing like RLC. There are all NITs which are central government institutions, and I firmly hold that there is no reason for there to be any difference whatsoever academically between NIT and IIT. Exactly in the same fashion, there should be no difference between any academic institution in any one of these IIT. Only thing is, the educational institutions have to imbibe this philosophy of excellence, imbibe this philosophy of hard work, imbibe this philosophy of ensuring that students learn maximally by applying their mind to solve problems, to think. And that there should never ever be a question asked which can be answered by learning some book by rote. You know, these fundamental things, we all understand these, but we are victims of the system. And I think it is necessary to change that system. Believe me, there is nothing like working for excellence. And you cannot substitute for excellence by any amount of other work that you do in a conventional way. So you have, and excellence is something which demands continuous upgrade. It cannot be done once. it requires tremendous amount of hard work. All of us do hard work, I understand this. But the hard work has to be really taken to its limit. Let me give you an anecdote from my own life about this hard work. We had a head of computer science early days, Professor Jimmy Isaac, who used to spend most of his time in the department. He would go back home around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the night, and come back at around 12 o'clock, 11:30. And then he would work through. And he would expect all of us, we were all young teachers then, computer science was a budding department. In fact, I recall many of us became teachers after our achieving our master's degree, which was unthinkable because you had to have a PhD to become a faculty. In fact, I remember my colleagues used to laugh at us saying, "Kya jamana aa gaya hai, IIT mein unpad log padha rahe." That means people without PhD are teaching that. And I have to remind them that 10, 15 years ago, same was the situation in conventional disciplines. There was no sort of PhD pattern in the country, but whatever. So this guy used to, and we used to have fun time, night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we would all work together, solve problems, set up parameters for next week's lectures, think about new lectures, all, it was great fun. But Isaac took this for granted that everybody will work like that. One day he said, "Father, what is wrong with Sada? I have not seen him for the last 4 or 5 days." By days he meant nights. Days everybody was there. I didn't say anything. Next week he asked me, "Father, where is Dhabi? I have not seen for the last 2 days." Professor Damdere, another colleague of mine. So I said, "Jimmy, have a heart. They just got married last month." And he says, "What has marriage to do with work?" Now I didn't know how to answer that. I was gaping with an open mouth at him. I think within a few seconds he himself realized what he said. Then he smiled. And then he says, "Father, we must meet their spouses and tell them that their husbands are primarily meant for computer science department. Occasionally they will come home." Now that is the discipline which I was fortunate enough to have been trained. After this dialogue, I felt a bit frustrated. I said, "Jimmy, tell me what exactly do you expect from us?" He says, "You must be able to work for 3 days and 3 nights continuously, at least once a week." I don't know what twice a week would have been. I said, "Jimmy, that is harsh." He says, "Father, if you can't do it, go find some other job. You cannot be a teacher of computer science in IIT Bombay unless you are able to do it." I tell you, I consider myself to be so fortunate that I was privileged to be trained under this hard circle. And it's not just hard work, it has to be hard and smart work. Because the students that we get are among the smartest people. And as you will all agree, in any generation, students are always smarter than their teachers. After all, we teachers and we were young students, we generally believe the same. And our students believe the same even today. But the only way to counter that perceived smartness is to be able to demonstrate that, look, you may be smart. But many smarter people in the world have tried to solve these problems and these are still unsolved. Teaching, learning, my dear friends, is actually a joint exercise. And it could be amazing fun if you have dialogues that are going on between students and teachers. What unfortunately has happened in the past so many centuries of educational process is that, no, it is not me. I had put it on the silent mode. Now, you look at the amount of time that you spend with your students. And I am not talking about delivering lectures. Delivering lectures has its own baggage of problems. I'll tell you the first problem that I discovered when I became a teacher. The first full course I was given was in 1974 when my colleague, Professor S.S.P. Rao, with other colleagues had gone to Yerevan to be trained on the Russian EC-1030 computer which we acquired. So I was to teach that course on analog computers and so on. And I went to the class preparing for 2 books, and finally I electrical engineering students. And I started giving my lectures, and within 20 minutes there was push started. So I stopped halfway through and I asked the students, what the hell? Either whatever I am saying is going tangential on your heads, or is too damn simple. And in a chorus, the entire class of 15 students said, too damn simple, sir. I was surprised because I thought I had studied and prepared well. So that after the class, I went to my other guru, Professor Kekre, my PhD guy, and I said, today the students reacted like that, and I thought I had prepared. He said, okay, what preparation did you do? So I told him the 2 books which I had studied. You are teaching a course in IIT Bombay using only 2 books. So which books are you? These are elementary books. Then he immediately dictated to me a list of 7 books, which he said you must study. Then I said I will have to go to library. Here are these 2 of them. You carry them. When is your next lecture? Next week. All right. So if you are going to teach from these chapters, study that chapter from all the books. Solve all problems. And one day before your class, you must come to me and demonstrate to me that you have actually been able to solve those problems. I had to sheepishly go next week to him saying, some of these problems I could not solve. He laughed and he says, good, because I also could not solve some of those. But that is the amount of work that you are required to do. There is no shortcut to it. And when you do that kind of work, believe me, your students will also respect you. It is not that you must be able to answer every question that every student asks. But you must be seen to be trying hard to answer that question. There is absolutely no problem in admitting to students. I have learned this hard way in 50 years. Good question, I don't know the answer. But let me try to find out tonight. You also try to find out tonight. Tomorrow we'll have a 10-minute discussion on this. It works out well. And it is not necessary that it will work well only in an IIT and so on. It will work well anywhere. The only thing is, students and teachers have to develop that mutual confidence that together we are in the business of learning. We are in the business of advancing our mindset, our understanding of knowledge. And even in your lectures, one problem which I faced, as I was telling you, I asked my seniors, if I am teaching a class of 16, where should I focus the main lecture focus point? Everybody said, focus on the average of the class. I was not very comfortable with that answer. I remember I went home and I drew a 2-dimensional graph on x-axis. Oh my God, this time it is me. Sorry. I thought I made it silent. Just give me a second. It's not on the airplane mode, not. Sorry for that. So the 2-dimensional graph that I drew was on x-axis I plotted the perceived motivation of the student to learn. On y-axis I plotted the knowledge and background of the student in that subject, which would of course change dynamically. And as you can see that you would have all 50 students dispersed very well on that 2-dimensional plane. So of course I used hypothetical figures and drew some point. But I did calculate the spatial average. Some point came here and I found that there was nobody at that point. So next day I said, remember I met one senior professor, Sengupta, who told me to focus on average. And showed him the graph and I said, sir, does it mean that I am teaching nobody? So he says, Father, don't be smart. You understand what I meant. When you focus on the average, it is meaningful for all the students. I reflected upon this observation and then I realized that if I focus on the average, the people on the bottom half will probably benefit because they will necessarily move upwards because the focal point will force them to learn something more or to dedicate some more. But what will happen to the rest of the schools? They are all negatively impacted. The top performing schools will simply stop bothering because they know that this focal point of this teacher is only 7. I realized then that the required approach of a teacher is to ensure that the entire class moves up. And therefore there has to be an arrow from origin going to infinity. And you have to constantly move along that line to ensure that every student benefits. Which means somehow you have to establish a dialogue with every student. And the larger the class strength, the more difficult point. I made it a point in those days that I must relate and connect with every student, because then only I will be able to motivate. You see, every student has a different learning style. Every student has a different background. But for us, students become statistics sometimes when the numbers are high. Students are not statistics. Every student desires that the teacher should connect with me, although the student may never articulate. In my younger days, when we used to get registration data in the form of attendance sheet, I used to mug up the names of all students in the class. I remember a colleague of mine, late person, he used to remember names, roll numbers of all students that he had taught. Amazing memory. In fact, a very funny incident happened when a student who had passed out 3 years ago was recently married and had brought his wife to show the beautiful campus, and they were walking in the corridor when they suddenly saw this Professor Shankar, and he politely said, "Hello, sir." And Shankar said, "You are so and so, you passed 3 years ago, right? This was your roll number." And he addressed him by name. And his wife was impressed. My husband is personally known to the teacher. Unfortunately, what Mr. Shankar did is immediately thereafter he said, "But you got only 58 marks in my course." No, that was not necessary at all. Right. So you can take your memory skills to a different level. But I tell you, it did make a difference. Later on, when I started teaching courses with larger number of students, life became difficult because my memory is not that good. But I did one trick which some of you might find useful. I had a class of 350. By this time, the registration was online, and along with the names, you could also get photographs. So what I used to do is, before the class, I would mug up the names of 10 or 15 students and their faces. And in a 1.5-hour session, by this time we had shifted to what we call a flipped classroom kind of approach, where there were no lectures. Lectures were pre-recorded or reference or others, and students were required to listen to those lectures in their hostel. And the classroom sessions were entirely problem-solving discussion sessions. Believe me, it's a very worthwhile thing to do. We experienced that. But in that process, what I would do is, I would always ask a question by pointing finger to a person and asking him or her by name. And I tell you, the students were really impressed that, oh, this teacher knows about me. Believe me, it also indicates to a student that this teacher cares. Of course, my memory is not as sharp as Professor Shankar, so I forget that. Next class, I will take another set of 10. Relating to students, I believe, is the most important aspect of education in this century, because the traditional role of a teacher who delivers useful content is over. The best content is available, the best explanations are available. What you can do is two things. Curate the content. So tell the student that these are probably the most useful content in the limited time you can spend time. And second, motivate them, work with them, direct them. So you are more like mentors. That's the role of a teacher. And mentoring cannot be done to a group or statistics. If there are 60 students in your class, for you, there are a bunch of people, very top performing students, good performing students, average students, and poor students. That is statistics. But for each one of them, you are the only teacher of that subject. And if I am one such student, I will say, "Sir or madam, please talk to me at least once in the semester. Please don't make me part of the statistics. Please recognize me as an individual. Please understand that my parents have to do a lot of struggle to put me into this institution, and that I am trying to learn as much as possible. And I know that I can learn better with your help, but please look at me at least once. As the classes become larger, this becomes a tougher problem. But believe me, there is no shortcut. In the IIT NIT system, we have a strong group of teaching assistants who help us to conduct the education in a more personalized fashion. I would, if you must also have this kind of mechanism, but I would urge you, if not, have that kind of mechanism so that you can spend more time with individual students interacting with them. This COVID times also brought out another interesting feature in the digital education. Online classes. I tell you, I have not seen a bigger humbug than that. In an online class, I sit across and I see on my screen names of people. To preserve the bandwidth, the students are indicated to switch off their videos. That means they appear only in names. Are you sure that behind the name there is actually a person sitting there? I have seen so many students attending online classes viewing the entire thing as if they are watching a movie. Would they do that in a classroom? In a classroom, they will sit with a notebook, they will take notes. Nothing of that sort happens. Except when you have a virtual classroom where every student is visually accessible to the teacher. And every student is visually accessible to all other students. That is how you simulate a classroom. You see, this digital world has made phenomenal progress in making good content available to students. But there are two things of the conventional education which the digital world cannot do. One is curation of the content, which has become far more important today than only experience itself. And second is the synchronous gathering of people together like we are all here. You see, in a classroom, if you ask one question to one student and that student answers, all other students benefit because they are listening to that conversation. And this happens spontaneously. It does not happen because of a defined process or something. We lose that spontaneity. We lose that human touch. So, I believe that in the coming decades, you will have actually a beautiful combination of online content delivery and the advantages of synchronous interaction built together. I believe that will be the right education going forward. Having talked about education, there is one quality that we need to cultivate both among our students and among ourselves. And that quality can be described by two important characteristics. One is the ability to do teamwork, and the second is to lead teams. There will be many occasions when I will be part of a larger team, but I have to work as a teammate. There will be occasions when in certain spheres, because of my expertise or experience, I will be called upon to lead the team. And then I have to prove that my leadership works. Believe me, educational, institutional ethos has created large number of such leaders, and most of them say that they learn their leadership skills not in the classroom, but in the rest of the environment that happened, particularly in a residential environment like hostels and so on. So there is a lot that has been talked about leadership facets. You all are familiar with those. Some well-known things, for example, is that a leader has to take decisions. You cannot procrastinate for a long time. If there is an issue, you have to take this. And that decision better be good. But good, bad or ugly, you have to take big decisions. A leader has to implement those decisions. And leader cannot implement decisions alone. He or she will have to take a large team to carry people. So the ability to carry people together is an important ability among leaders. A leader, by the very nature of the term, is one who takes a little less credit than you and a little more blame than that. It's not easy to do that. These are all well-known facets of leadership. I will not go into with that. But I would like to tell you about two incidences that happened in my life, and I understood certain other facets of leadership which are not very obvious otherwise by reading books or something like that. One incident happened when I was the data processing in charge for joint entrance exam. I'm talking of very old times when the data used to come, it used to be punched on cards, and the cards were converted into magnetic tape, and people from all other IITs, we were organizing this shoot that time, that means we organized the JEE, and the data processing consolidation was to be done at our. So there used to be a regular 10-day program. The representatives will come with their mag tapes, we'll take a printout, we'll give them, and they will religiously go through each and every record to ensure that everything is correct and so on. There will be corrections made. We had this famous EC 1030, and we had planned for the 10 days. We went on like that for about 4 days' time. 6 days of work was still remaining, when suddenly a great electric surge occurred somewhere and it hit our campus. There was a circuit breaker installed on the campus somewhere. Somebody jokingly said that the circuit breaker, being an IIT circuit breaker, had become intelligent enough so that when the surge came, it saved itself and let the surge pass. The surge passed further, and unfortunately our EC 1030 was in its path. I tell you, the mainframe was fried. In fact, the surge was so large that even the cable burned. And that's it, we didn't know what would happen. Fortunately, my electrical engineering staff from the campus electrical maintenance people, they worked 24 hours, they replaced the entire cable and they brought the supply back. Once the supply came, we recognized the damage done to various units. Practically magnetic tape, controller was not working, this controller was not working, something had gone wrong. So my colleague, Professor SSP Rao, who had a very strong team of hardware people, they worked, but they said it will take at least 2 to 3 days. At that time, I went to my chairman and vice chairman. Vice chairman was Professor Bharat, whom incidentally I met many decades later in Nitte when I visited after retirement. So I said, sir, can we extend the date of publication of result, JEE result? What would happen if we did that? So Professor Bhatt smiled and said, nothing great will happen, but the entire country will remember for decades that IIT Bombay was the only institute which delayed publication of JEE result. You want that on your head? Go ahead. I said, no, we'll do something. And what to do? There were only 3 days left when the hardware team announced that EC 1030 is not functional. And we said, fine. But we had 6 days of work. So I called the colleague representative and said, we have this problem, so we'll be working also in the night. But what we'll do is we'll do most of the processing work that we have to do independently late nights. But during the daytime and evening, please help us in ensuring that, because you see, every record was meticulously checked individually by person. It was, people did not believe in machines as much as they do now. There. First day, first night, second day, second night, and I tell you, 3 or 4 of us were working, we were actually tired. On the third day evening, I started making fancy mistakes. So I would go to a card reader, push a card deck there for a new program, and when the program runs, I would use that card deck and go to the printer, then I take out the printer paper, go to the magnetic tape drive, take out a tape, and leave it somewhere else. My vice chairman of JEE was personally there that night also. Every night he used to spend it. And he discovered that I had started shouting, where is that tape? Where is that tape? And each of these things would be there in that large computer center, but in some other places. What I found unbelievable, When I did this 2 or 3 times, next time I said, "Where is my deck?" And I suddenly found Professor Bhatt saying, "Hatak, is this the one?" And I saw him carrying a deck, a printout, a tape. So I was astonished. I said, "Thank you, sir," and then took it. And then second or third time when I did this, I realized that this great man was vice chairman of the joint entrance examination, very senior professor, was actually following me wherever I went, and wherever I kept something, he would pick it up and carry it. And then I suddenly felt very ashamed. When I was a very junior teacher, he was such a senior teacher. I said, "Professor Bhatt, I am really sorry, I should be more careful." You know what he did? He smiled and he says, "Father, I can't help you in any of the technical thing that you will do at me. But this is one thing I can help. So please do not mind at all, carry on. Our combined effort is to ensure that the results are completed tonight, and we will do that." My dear friends, I believe that is an aspect of leadership. We say that a leader must work with the colleagues and make himself or herself as useful as is possible there. No airs in the air. That is something extraordinary. The second incident happened with me when great Dr. Abdul Kalam visited IIT Bombay. At that time, of course, he was not the Honorable President of India, but he was Chief of DRDO. And I was working on a project for Aeronautical Development Agency where Dr. Kota Harinarayan insisted that we should do as much indigenization as possible. And I was working on a maintenance training simulator which was being imported from France, the cost of 2 crore rupees. And we were able to build everything with the graphic design done by an Indian company, Dr. Rajarao, who was actually a PhD student of IIT Madras. And we were doing that, and we were pretty happy about what was. When I heard that Dr. Kalam is coming, I wanted him to visit our lab. So I approached the director's office. He says, "No, the personal secretary has approved the following schedule, and that's all. There's no place for him to go anywhere else." So I looked at that schedule, this lab, this department, and I said, "But after the evening, there is no appointment." He says, "No, he has to catch a morning 5 o'clock flight. So he is not meeting anybody after the evening." I was shocked. How can great Dr. Kalam come to IIT Bombay and not visit my lab? So then I did a clever thing. I found out that in the schedule, he was to move from a lab in one corner to aerospace engineering department to another corner. And I asked the director's office, "Permit me to be his chauffeur. Let me drive him from this place to that place." "So what will you achieve?" I said, "Nothing, I'll get 2 minutes to talk to him." Fine. They all agreed. So I reached the other lab, and as he came out, in fact, I remember Professor Sasrupte, my colleague. So he smiled and introduced me to Dr. Kalam and said, "This person, Phatak, is going to be your chauffeur to the next building." He shook hands with me, smiled. When we came out, I had an old Fiat car. So I opened the rear door for him to sit. He had a gunman, by the way, the security detail. You look at that person's instant reaction. He peeped into the driver's seat, found there was no driver. Immediately realized that this professor is going to drive. He asked the gunman to sit in the rear seat, opened the front door and sat next to him. And you imagine the courtesy of such a great person being shown to a young professor. As I started moving, so I told him, "Sir, we are working on this indigenous maintenance simulator." And Dr. Kota Harinarayan told me you're doing a good job. So I said, "Sir, I wanted him to visit our lab." Yes, I would love to. I said, "But we asked your secretary, he said there's no time." He did not say anything. After a few seconds, he says, "Professor, do your people work in the night?" I said, "Of course they do. They are in Bombay." He says, "Come to the guest house at 10 o'clock in the night." I said, "But sir, you have to catch an early morning flight and your secretary has said strictly no appointments afterwards." He smiled and said, "He sleeps at 9:45. You see, intrinsic commitment to indigenization was so much that he would not let a chance to meet people who are doing some indigenous development. This news spread like wildfire in the campus that Phatak has written out an appointment of Dr. Kalam at 10 o'clock in the night. Two of my colleagues were then working on some microelectronics activities, Professor Zuzar Vasi and then Professor Chavlorkar. And they had also built an equipment as a substitute for imported equipment which would have costed around 37 lakhs. They had built it in 12 lakhs. And it was as good as anything. And they had built it themselves. They were very keen to show this to Dr. Kalam. But they, like me, also had found out that Kalam had no time. So Zuzar called me and says, Phatak, I understand that he is meeting you. I said, yes. So can you request him to come to my lab? I said, how can I request him? This is already too much. You remember he has to catch a 5 o'clock flight. So I said, the best is that 10 o'clock is coming to my lab. Come to my lab around 10:20 or so and request him. Then let's see what he says. Kalam spent those 30 minutes talking to my team of project engineers, students, etc. And I tell you, for next 6 months, that entire team was working like zombies. Such was the great motivating power of that person. He said, what you are doing for this nation is extraordinary. Continue to do that. At 10:20, Professor Chandorkar and Zuzar Vasi entered. I introduced them to him. And then I said, sir, they are also working on some microelectronics. And just before that, he had told our team how India is very poor in electronics in the Janai. He said, everything else we can do that, but electronics is still dependent. And then he heard this. Very good, very good. So Chandorkar said, sir, we would like you to visit our lab. And you know what he said? He smiled and looked at me. He said, if the professor does not mind chauffeuring me around, I have absolutely no problem. 10:30, we went to his lab. At 11 o'clock, I brought him back at the guest house. Such is the commitment. Such is the concern for people who are working. I think these are aspects of leadership which are ordinarily not taught or not discussed, but they have to be seen and felt. I have had the privilege of feeling these, and I thought I will share these with you to suggest that when you interact with your students, keep it in mind that from the bunch of students that you have, each one will have different characteristics. But let these facets of leadership rub onto them. Let them learn some of these things, which, believe me, they are very smart people. Many of them may be silent people, as I said. Don't forget that each student is asking you that, sir or madam, please don't treat me as a statistic. I am an individual human being, and you are the only teacher teaching me this subject. To the students who are assembled here, I would ask exactly the opposite question. Like all of you have 24 hours in a day, we teachers also have only 24 hours in a day. Like all of you have things to do in life, such as playing games in the evening, or having cat sessions, or a cup of tea, or seeing movies, or whatever. We teachers also have responsibility. We have to spend time with our family. We have to be concerned about things, administrative things which we have to do appropriately. And yet, we also work hard like you. We spend time in preparing for interaction with you. We spend time in trying to teach well. We spend time doing all of those things. And therefore, as a teacher, I would expect from you that please don't remain silent spectators in my classroom. Please interact with me. If I am not able to do that with each one of you, what prevents you from writing an email to me? What prevents you from coming and talking to me at least once? What prevents you from sharing with me any problem that you have? Believe me, I am there as a teacher to help. So please don't leave me alone. I think this mutual respect and mutual expectation and mutual interaction is what is desired, digital century or otherwise, because that is when the best teaching learning will happen. I have no doubt, as I said, that in this Amrit Kaal, the nation will do wonderful things. Over the next 25 years, we are going to continue to make rapid progress. The progress may not reach every individual Indian, because that is defined by what you call the per capita GDP. And per capita GDP figures, that is where the bad aspect of statistics hits us, cannot change very rapidly. However, what can change is our empathy with people. What can change is our desire to share. What can change is our desire to help. And believe me, you cannot find a better example than the Nitte organization itself, which has emerged out of desire to help. Please ensure that your students imbibe this desire. And whatever they do, please not train them well, but train them to think better, train them to analyze better, and train them to relate to people better. Tell them that while they will be working for themselves and their family, there is a larger world around them consisting of Indians, and all other Indians deserve as much attention, as much love, as much affection as you can give them. Don't spare yourself in that. Tell this to your students and tell this to yourself as well. And believe me, this Amrit Kaal will definitely result in India emerging not just as the strongest and richest country in the world. I am not concerned about that, because that will happen eventually. But a better human nation which can perhaps tell the entire world as to how to behave with other nations, other groups and other societies. Thank you so much. That is all I have.
Thank you, sir, from addressing us as friends to patting our backs and appreciating the integrity of Nitte in providing quality education. You are a testimonial to the saying that humility is the key to success. And giving us a message that India rightly deserves to be a global superpower. I'm sure that everybody here today is inspired to make a benchmark as a responsible citizen. Thank you once again, sir. We will now have the honor of felicitating our guest of eminence today. I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to lead the felicitation ceremony. I request all the dignitaries to join in the proceedings.
May I request all the head of the institutions to join us, please?
the time given to me for doing the honors. The floor is now open for questions. Anybody who would like to ask any particular questions, I would request you to kindly raise your hand in case you will come with the mic. So the floor is now open for discussion.
Yes, I love questions. I'm a teacher. The first question is usually a problem because who breaks the ice? I feel very bad if there is no question. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Amrit Kaal. And I just welcome the faculty for more than, I taught for more than 58 students. One question on this asking, Doctor, what is your impression regarding the national education policy?
It's a good question. I did not touch upon it during my talk. But the national education policy, the new education policy as they call it, it was released in 2020. And it makes a whole lot of observations, many of which by the way are not new. In my long career of 50 years, I have seen very similar thoughts being expressed at different points in time. These things happen every 20 years, so people forget what happened 20 years ago and so on. The new educational policy has a very significant difference from others in that it insists on its implementation. And it is going to be the most difficult part of doing it. Implementing the new education policy is not going to be. But it adds two very important things. First of all, it says, destroy all silos. So in a way, it supports what I have been advocating all my life, that multidisciplinary approach must be brought into our education. It insists on learning by doing, which is unfortunately not practiced in our conventional education system to the extent that it should be. There are several educational programs which have laboratories where schools are required to do something by their hand. But many times the laboratory experiments are set up in a very mundane fashion. The real learning by doing can happen only if the students are exposed to the external world. I know of one institution in Pune, Vishwakarma Institute of Technology, where they introduce project-based learning in every year of their curriculum. The first year students in groups will be sent around the city and the villages surrounding with a simple question. Go and find out what their problems are and go and then sit down and identify what technology solutions are feasible to solve those problems. So it's an interesting work. Students spend many of their Saturdays, Sundays and some holidays, etc. Did a wonderful job, except that to ensure that the enthusiasm level is high enough, they actually introduce credits for that activity, which are counted towards them. Please understand one thing, just as grown-ups are concerned about money and fame, students are concerned about marks. If there are no marks and you tell students, oh, you will benefit tremendously in knowledge, etc., they will say thank you very much. But if you say even for a small quiz there is half a mark, they will work overnight and come prepared to earn that mark. Because for them, what matters most is a good degree with good score, which they believe will result in a good job. So, designing these activities where they work and learn by experientially will be achieved only if these activities are also factored in your grading system and marking system. The new education policy also reasserts that a good education must also include creating a good human being, creating a good citizen, creating a person who has pride in his or her nation. Unfortunately, these are matters of ethics, these are matters of conviction, which unfortunately cannot be quantified and given in terms of marks. How to do that is not very easy. But if the educational system is not able to contribute to such learning and such development, then who else will? You will recall that in the traditional Indian society, what we call sanskar used to be given from parents and other people in the family and by teachers. Today parents have no time, they are both busy in doing whatever other things are. And teachers have no time because teachers are faced with large number of students. As a result, the learning students are left alone. And believe me, alone is not the way to invite some of these philosophies. So somehow we will have to figure out a mechanism by which we build values, we build ethics in our students. The new education policy, in my opinion, is a very well articulated policy. But 20 years later, I don't want to find again another policy coming in because nothing was done to implement this policy. My humble suggestion is that while this policy is a good document, every individual institution must take upon itself the responsibility of implementing it to the hilt. Then and only then the policy will be implemented. Do not expect the implementation to happen in a top-down fashion. The thought process has happened in top-down fashion, but the implementation has to be done in bottom-up fashion. And not just an institution, but each one of us must undertake this individual responsibility. That to my best of my mind, I will contribute in realizing these things. And if some of these things are not part of my syllabus, so be it. I'll go beyond that. And I'll engage with my students to make them understand the importance of these things in life, to learn better. You see, in my opinion, actually the best education is one which enhances the learnability of the student. As you are all aware, we teach as per some standard syllabus. The syllabus is a reflection of knowledge gained in the past. Does it? It does not necessarily prepare our students for what is going to happen in the future. And in this digital world, future is going to change far more rapidly than what we anticipate. So we have to ensure that any educational policy that we implement prepares a student not only to become a better citizen for future, not only to become a great professional by learning things that are required to be learned through experience or otherwise, but also becomes a great learner so that constantly changing world the student will be able to assimilate. So I believe, like all other past policies, this policy is also a very good policy. For the first time, this policy articulates some very, very important expectations from education. But the implementation of this policy has to be done by us, individually and collectively. There cannot be any other way of implementing that policy. Sorry for the long answer, but this is what I think.
Thank you, sir. Due to paucity of time, we will continue taking the questions with whoever has during the lunch hour, during the discussion time, during the lunch hour. Thank you so much, sir.
You see, the organizers decide when the question hour is end. But that's okay, I respect that.
We will request people who are having questions to join during the lunch hour.
Yeah, that is one thing. But may I suggest that in the digital world, email is an extremely good mechanism. And if someone can take the responsibility of collecting all the questions and sending them, I can assure you that I will answer all the questions, although don't expect immediate answer because it will take I will be happy. I actually had also started preparing a 2-page brief where I wanted to summarize the point that I made today, and also have collected a lot of web references, what I call curated content. I mean, thanks to the opportunity that you give me, I have gone through enormous amount of online literature that is available on different facets. So some which I like, I actually put them as references. And maybe it will take about 8-10 days because I am still traveling. But I will send that 2-page write-up to Gopal. All my talks and all my writings are in open source. So they are most welcome to share them on the web page and read some of those things. I am a storyteller, by the way. In one of the courses, I have told some 5 or 6 stories about how different occasions in my life taught me different things. And I have a link to those stories. They are all 5-minute, 7-minute stories. You may find them useful from another angle because one of the collections says a weekly assignment for students. These stories I have told as part of a course on soft skills. And that assignment was, from your own life experience, tell us a story where some incident happened which taught you something useful. We never give such kind of exercises in our conventional courses. But believe me, such exercises will force every individual student to reflect deeply upon happenings in one's own life. And suddenly several good incidences which one has forgotten may come to the mind. And such incidences, when told in the form of story, would be very useful for the entire class or for the larger group. So I will try and assemble that and send it to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We shall now have award presentation to best researchers and authors of research papers. May I request our Director R&D, Professor Dr. Praveen Kumar Shetty, to do the proceedings.
Good afternoon. Dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, the guest, Padma Shri Dr. Deepak Pathak ji, sir gave a wonderful lecture today, and our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. M.S. Muditaya, sir, and our respected Registrar, Dr. Harsha Haladi, and Vice President Technical Education, Dr. Gopal Mugeraya, all the head of the institutes, my colleagues, and student friends. As you know, the recently concluded Teachers' Day function. So we have awarded almost all the institution research award, best research award from each institution. Today, we have requested Sir Pathak Ji sir to have this function of best research award of Nitte deemed to be university. Sir has readily agreed for this function to have in this Amrit Kaal lecture. Thank you, sir. So today's Nitte deemed to be university best research award list. So as per, so we have already distributed this leaderboard. So one best awardee will be getting the flag and check and certificate. And in addition to best awardee, so we are going to award 4 research excellence award. So next 4 researchers will be awarded with best research excellence award. So they will be given the certificate of excellence. In addition to that, best paper award of the Nitte deemed to be university. So with the high impact factor article will get the best paper award. And in this year, so we have included one more, the best paper with the highest impact factor. So that also will be awarded today. Before going to the list of awardees, I brief the eligibility to get this Nitte DU Best Researcher Award. Should be a permanent full-time employee of Nitte DU, should have completed at least 1 year at Nitte DU as on this March 2023, should have published at least one paper in a journal indexed in Scopus or Web of Science as a corresponding author or a first author during the period 1/1/2022 to 31st December 2022, should have achieved at least one of the following. So either they have to get the extramural funding, they have to have ongoing extramural funding, or so they have published at least one patent in 2022. And so how these points are given? So these points will be given, so 25 weightage will be given to authorship credits, 25 points will be given to the external research grant amount received, 25 points will be given to the patent published, 5 points will be given to the patents applied, 10 points will be given to the copyright obtained, 10 points will be given to the number of PhD students guided to completion. So what about the best paper? So the best paper, it should be a full-length paper reporting original research, review or meta-analysis having the highest impact factor as per Journal Citation Report, Web of Science, with first author and corresponding authors from Nitte DU. Letters to editor, conference papers and case reports are excluded. So coming to the first, I will call upon the best researcher of Nitte deemed to be university. I request today's guest, Professor Padma Shri Dr. Deepak Pathakji, to hand over this award. The best researcher Nitte deemed to be university 2023 is Dr. Usha Sachidananda Adiga, Professor, Department of Biochemistry, K.S. Medical Academy. Then I will call upon the Research Excellence Certificate awardees, Dr. Krishna Kumar B. from Nitte University Center for Science, Education and Research. Dr. Praveen Rai from Nitte University Center for Science, Education and Research. Dr. Deekshit from Nitte University Center for Science, Education and Research. So then coming to the Best Research Paper Award 2023, it goes to Dr. Anurag Sharma, Nitte University Center for Science, Education and Research, for his article Reprogramming of Glycolysis by Chemical Carcinogens During Tumor Development. So this has 14.5 impact factor and this is published in Seminars in Cancer Biology. Seminars in Cancer Biology. Sorry, I think I forgot one. Research Excellence, Dr. Lovella Concepta Govias from NMA MIT. Dr. Lovella Concepta Govias, I'm sorry for that, from NMA MIT. A research paper with the highest impact factor, published in 2022 for Nitte EU. So this goes to Dr. Lekha Pandit, Professor, Department of Neurology, for her paper, Diagnosis and Classification of Optic Neuritis. So this particular article is published in the Lancet Neurology of having impact factor 48. In Lancet Neurology. Congratulations, madam. Thank you. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. May I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor to deliver the presidential address.
Padma Shri Professor Pathak ji, the very young and not so young members of Nitte family, invitees, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, friends, please join me in once again thanking for a very erudite, insightful, inspirational and very informative lecture by Professor Pathak. Thank you so much. Professor Pathak, as an erudite professor, in his inimitable style, he has told you what the life of an academician should be and how inspiring you should be to the, be taught as a teacher, and also how in this Amrit Kaal has a very important responsibility of igniting the young minds. Ladies and gentlemen, I remember a small anecdote because he has been giving a lot of anecdotes. I remember a small anecdote. It was somewhere in the year 1996. For the first time, I was invited for a conference in US, and I was to make a presentation in a conference. And of course, it was in New York City and the 52nd floor of, if I remember, Marriott. And I met a professor from the University of Pennsylvania, and I just, casually, all Indians have this habit of anybody you meet, you say, oh, it is such a pleasure meeting you, and so on, and then you say, you should come to India once. And I did the same thing, and he said, yes, I want to be smart, that's why you want to come to India. Then I asked him, what do you mean by that? Then he said, look, in 19th century, if someone has not seen Europe, he would not be considered smart. In 20th century, if someone has not seen America, he would not be considered smart. Believe me, this was in 1996. He said, in 21st century, if someone has not visited India, he will not be considered smart. Ladies and gentlemen, I was at that point of time wondering whether it is really going to be true. But then, you have enough evidences to prove now, including empirical evidences, that India's time has come, and India certainly is going to be Vikasit Bharat, and by 2047, as we celebrate the 100th year of independence, India would have reclaimed the glorious past it has had and the bright future it is going to have. But then sometimes, as we interact among youngsters and as we discuss amongst ourselves, as we look at some of the things that is happening around us, we wonder whether it is going to happen. We have several apprehensions in our mind, and Professor Pathak has already explained as to what is the responsibility of the academicians and how we should not work in silos. And Professor Sir, I wish to tell you that in this audience we have almost all the disciplines that you can think of, starting from medicine to management, and all the three campuses of Nitte University. Select a few have come forward. I mean, they are participating in this. We are not working in silos, and we should assure you that in the Vikasit Bharat, Nitte University will have a very important role to play, and all starting from Usha Ariga, who was honored today as the best research award has been given to her of the university. Everybody, all of us will work together to make India proud. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is said that we have had a glorious past and we are going to have a bright future, but sometimes we ask a question, but what about the present? I wish to very briefly tell you that even the present is not bad. Vikasit Bharat is going to be a reality, because if you see, as the whole world is reeling under the recessionary trends, and the inflation is soaring, the interest rates are going up, but India has shown the resilience to all these things. You will find that India's growth rate is estimated to be around 6.5%, 6 to 6.5% for sure, and this is the highest growth rate in the whole world, and that's why Vikasit Bharat is going to be reality. India will be certainly a developed nation. And similarly, you will find that the recent figures, if you see, India's merchandise and services exports are growing and remaining at all-time high. Also, please remember that the private capital expenditure and the public capital expenditure in India is growing. I don't know how many of you have been analyzing the annual budgets of Government of India. If you really see, it never used to cross around 12% of the total budget, capital expenditure budget. Okay? Now, last year it has gone to 22%. This is not a small achievement. That means to say, we are not just giving fish to eat to hungry people, but we are teaching fishing. This is a paradigm shift in development, and this is something to be appreciated. And that's why you see the expressways coming up, the Vande Bharat reaching almost all the prominent centers of the country, and lot of emphasis on infrastructure. Similarly, you would also see the direct tax collections going up like anything, and even GST going up like anything. And the direct tax collections has reached 5.9 lakh crore in the financial year 23, and you will also find the GST collections have almost reached, it's almost on an annual basis, reaching almost 18 lakh crores. We were never talking about all those things earlier. This has never happened earlier, and that's why you will also find that so many enablers. The Digital India, for instance, is a great initiative. Now, you may not appreciate this, but what difference Aadhaar is making, what difference the Swanidhi is making, or what difference the Udyam portal is making, GST and even the small FASTag you have in your car is making to India is something that you should be very, very proud of. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not going to give a lengthy lecture on this occasion. I am only here as the president of today's function, wherein our Honorable Chancellor should have come here. And I was just trying to tell Professor Pathak as we began that along with the India's growth story, please also remember that institutions like Nitte, under the able guidance of our Chancellor, who unfortunately because of ill health could not participate in this event, the people like Mr. Vinay Hegde, the Chancellor of Nitte University, is something great. Like India's growth story, the Nitte's growth story has also been very, very fascinating. And I'm sure with your presence here, with your inspirational words, my colleagues are taking a lot back to their institutions, and the Nitte would continue its journey towards excellence. Once again, thank you so much for your presence here and for your reflection.
Thank you so much, sir. Quoting IEM, Dr. Jayashankar, as he always says, India is entitled to make its own choices. I'm sure we will all make our choices and we will all work towards the Amrit Kaal. Thank you once again. May I now request our Registrar, Professor Dr. Harsha Hanali, to propose the vote of thanks.
Dignitaries on the dais, guests, my colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure and it's a privilege to propose a vote of thanks as we come towards the end of this wonderful program that we have today. Before I begin, I wish to convey to our guest, Professor Dr. Pathak, and to all of you, our Chancellor's message recorded early this morning, expressing his apologies for not being able to be part of this event. We miss it. I'm sure that he would have added more to this event. Let me begin by thanking the presiding officer for today's program, our Honorable beloved Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. M.S. Muritaya. When the initial proposal for event of this nature came up, Dr. Mudithaya, without any hesitation, said that we must host this event, and he has guided us and he has supported us in every possible way to make this event possible. Professor Mudithaya, thank you for being part of this. For this special seminar on the progress of India, and as we approach towards what is being called as Amrit Kaal, I'm sure that we simply couldn't have had a better guest speaker, Padma Shri Professor Dr. Deepak Phatak ji, a great teacher, a thought leader, innovator, researcher, mentor, institution builder, all rolled into one. It's been an honor to have him here with us today, to hear his words and to spend some time with him. Dr. Phatak, as we realize now, is almost like a child of free India, born in 1948. And he has grown with India, and he has given us great insights into the transformation that our nation has gone through and is going through over the last 75 years. And in his address, he has covered a wide arc of issues, sprinkled with his very interesting, very appropriate anecdotal experiences. He has given us glimpses into what a great teacher he is, and a very inspiring lecture. He has given us some very important messages that what we could do as a university to contribute towards this Amrit Kaal, to make a nation's dreams come true, the importance of breaking barriers, disciplinary barriers within the university system, to put our hearts back into teaching and learning, because that is what we are essentially here for, and to aspire for excellence in everything that we do. And he has given us some great examples of that in his own, his life itself is an example, and he has also narrated to us many other influential people whom he has interacted with, and therefore we indirectly learn from that. Professor Phatak, thank you from the bottom of our heart, from all of us here today. We are indeed grateful to have you with us here today. I must thank Dr. Gopal Mukherjee, Vice President for Technical Education, for connecting with Dr. Phatak and ensuring that he makes it for this program here, for facilitating his participation here. His childlike enthusiasm throughout the last 2 weeks to make sure that everything, we organize these things well, has been a great driving force in making sure that this program has become a memorable event for us. Dr. Gopal, thank you. I thank all the heads of institutions and the directors who have all made time to be here with us today. In fact, we have heads of institutions from all the 3 campuses of the Nitte group of institutions, Bangalore, Nitte and Bangalore. We are delighted to have you here with us today, the directors too. We also have representation from some of the neighboring colleges. Thank you, sirs, thank you, ladies, for responding to our invitation and being here with us today. I must thank Dr. Nagesh Prabhu, our Director for Curriculum Development. He's a man who has looked into every little detail of this event and who has made sure that no stone is left unturned to make this event success that it has been. Dr. Praveen Kumar Shetty for organizing the presentation of the Research Awards. We had the right guest, the researcher himself, to present the awards here today, and we are. I thank Dr. Phatak for agreeing to have this additional part of the program. I'm sure that the awardees here today and the rest of us appreciate that, and we feel inspired by that. Thank you. Thank you. My congratulations to all the award winners today who have received awards, and also the others who have received awards in other programs and institutions, and for participating here. Congratulations and thank you. I must thank AICTE for guiding us in this event and permitting us to hold this event. Not many universities get the chance to do this, and we are one of them. We are thankful to AICTE for that. My thanks to my colleagues in the university office, Mr. Vikram, Ms. Vinutini, Mrs. Sumita Shetty, and Shalini, for working behind the scenes for making this happen. My thanks to Ms. Akshata, the Master Ceremony, and the team of volunteers, the media team who are helping us cover this event and helping us to reach this out to many more people, and everyone else who has directly or indirectly contributed to this event. And of course, to all my colleagues and my students who are here, because this event is primarily for you, and I'm sure we all leave this program very enriched, very inspired, and ready to go back and rededicate ourselves to whatever we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Here we come to the end of the event. The wheel should roll on to 2047 and race to reach the highest global superpower. I request everyone to kindly raise the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जगधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जाने तब शुभ आशीष माने गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे